Welcome, my friends, to the vault. I have never lived in a haunted house, but my mother has. I used to sit with her and listen to her tell her stories to her students all the time. The house she lived in while she was a teen had a host of things that different people had experienced, and other houses on the same street had things going on in them as well. This story is about one of those houses. A few houses away from my mom's lived a man and his family. One night, one of his daughters was complaining of having a bad headache. She went to bed, and the next day the family found the daughter had died of a brain aneurysm overnight. The father decided to take his family away after the funeral to get their minds off the tragedy. Because they had a lot of pets, they asked my uncle to come by and check on the animals while they were gone. One day, my mom and dad, they were dating at the time, decided to come along with my uncle. My mother had heard that the family had a grand piano in the house that she wanted to see and play, and my father wanted to see the animals because he was in school to be a vet. After entering the house, my uncle and father headed down to the basement where they kept the animals, and my mother stayed on the top floor to play the piano. She was sitting and playing when she felt something brush her ankles. She stopped playing for a second and dismissed it as being one of the cats that may have come up from the basement and brushed by her. She continued playing when she felt it again. She looked under the piano, but nothing was there and just decided to ignore it. When she started again, she didn't feel something brush by her legs like the last two times. This time, she felt hands clasp her legs and grab them tightly. At that instant, my mother jumped up from the piano and dashed to the cellar door. She called to see if my uncle and father were done yet, and waited there until they came up to leave. When they got outside, my uncle could tell my mom was rattled about something, and asked her what was wrong. After she told him what happened as she was playing the piano, my uncle's face turned completely white. He told her that the daughter, who passed away, used to play a game with her father. When he would play the piano, the daughter would crawl under the piano on her stomach, grab her father's ankles, and push him up and down on the pedals. My sister lives in the most active haunted house I've been in. It doesn't freak my sister out all that bad, or me for the most part, because we both grew up in a haunted house, so we're no strangers to the unexplained. But when it comes to my brother-in-law and the kids, it's a different story. Within 2 weeks of moving in, my sister saw a full-bodied apparition standing in the dining room. It was an apparition of an older man wearing a large brimmed hat and a vest. 2 weeks later, my brother-in-law saw the same man, and he didn't take it well, considering he's petrified of ghosts. It happened again to my brother-in-law about a month later, only this time, the man was standing in the entryway to the house and could be seen through the screen door looking out. He stayed in his car until my sister got home. My brother-in-law is no coward and is quite dangerous in a brawl, but I think he draws a line at things he can't punch. My sister and brother-in-law acquired the house from friends of theirs, who were the previous occupants. They approached them and asked them if they've experienced anything strange while they lived there. And they responded with, "Did you see the man?" Obviously, the prior occupants had seen this entity quite regularly, to give such a matter-of-fact response, like it was an old friend of theirs or something. I was oblivious to these happenings until my sister and brother-in-law told me about them. I became intrigued and offered to check it out, considering I was going to be at their house anyway to help hang sheetrock. When I got there, only my brother-in-law was there, and he told me about the footsteps that had recently started. I used to do ghost hunting as a hobby back in the day, but in all that time I'd never heard ghostly footsteps. I was a little excited, to be honest. We started cutting and hanging sheetrock in the kitchen when, sure as shit, I clearly heard someone walking around right above my head on the second floor. I looked at my brother-in-law with a smirk and said, "Are you serious, dude?" He responded with, "It happens all the time now." A little chill went up my spine and we went back to work, all the while listening to the unmistakable sound of heavy-footed walking and shuffling above our heads. To be honest, I wish I had recorded it. It just kept going and going. Suddenly, the footsteps and shuffling stopped, and it stayed quiet for about 10 minutes. Then, we heard a slamming sound that shook the floor. This rattled both of us. The only thing that could have made that sound were the old heavy wooden cellar doors outside. I told my brother-in-law we have to go check it out. Understandably, he wasn't a huge fan of the idea. My main concern was the off chance that someone broke in to steal stuff, so I grabbed a claw hammer and told him just back me up if shit gets real. I'll be honest, my hands were shaking when we pulled open the cellar doors and made the descent into the musty old basement. We searched every inch of the basement, but there was no one down there. At least that we could see. Again, I got a chill up my spine and got the hell out of there. That was my first experience in that house. A few months later, I offered to stay overnight and record the basement with a baby monitor. Not high-tech, but it gets the job done. I set the baby monitor up in an area of the basement that gave me the creepiest feelings. I watched it using my laptop and recorded roughly 16 hours of footage. I never caught anything on the video, but the audio was very interesting and a bit unnerving. There was constantly barely audible murmuring, even into the early morning hours when everyone, including me, had gone to sleep. It sounded like numerous individuals were having a conversation they didn't want anyone to hear. Oddly, the activity came to a halt with no explanation, and the house was quiet for about a year until recently. The things that happen now put me on edge a bit, because I have seen things in broad daylight that I can't explain. On 2 occasions, I've seen what looks like a woman walking through the front yard towards the back of the house, but when I went to check it out, there was no one there. One of the kids experienced something almost identical, but far more terrifying, not long after me. One of my nephews was playing in the backyard in the afternoon when a woman's head creeped around the backside of the house and was staring at him. My nephew panicked and ran behind one of the cars in the driveway. A few seconds later, we heard walking up the outside stairwell leading to the second floor, but couldn't see anyone physically up there. I find this distressing in a way because all the activity before seemed random, as if the ghosts weren't aware of our presence, but now it seems they are quite aware. It has quieted down a bit, but this house has its ebbs and flows. I pray the ghosts don't try making physical contact next. I had a good childhood for the most part. I grew up in a neighborhood that had plenty of kids my age to play with. There was a lake with a rope swing for the hot summer days. Growing up in Florida, a shady, cool lake was a welcome reprieve. My grandma even lived next door to us, and it was nice having her close by. When I was 12, things started taking a sinister turn. The first thing I remember happening was one night when I was laying in bed watching TV. My closed closet door swung open, hit the wall, and slammed shut. I ran to the living room where my parents were and in tears told them just what had happened. As parents sometimes do, they didn't believe me. That night, as I tried to fall asleep, I heard something bang on our utility room door. It sounded like they were trying to break it down. Real quick, let me give you a setup of my house. It was basically a long hallway with rooms off to either side. You could stand at the front door and see the back door. My dad added a utility room/workshop when I was about 8, and it made the house look huge. The actual living area was really small though. Anyway, because of how small the house was, I heard the banging loud and clear. I screamed for my parents, and they both came running into my room. I told them what I heard, and my dad went to check it out while my mom tried to calm me down. My dad found nothing, and I ended up sleeping in their room that night. After that, the activity in the house really picked up. We would find things completely out of place. Car keys would be in the kitchen. A vase that was on the bookshelf in the living room would be in the bathroom. Just objects out of place everywhere. This was also when I started seeing a black figure at my bedroom door. At first, it would just stand there and stare into my room. I told my mom about it, and she said I must be dreaming. I was not dreaming. I was wide awake. Soon, the figure started coming into my room, closer and closer to my bed. It was terrifying. One night, I got up the nerve to try to run past it. It didn't touch me that I could see, but I was pushed back onto my bed with such force that my head hit the wall between my room and my parents' room. My mom came in to see what happened, and I told her. She looked at me with concern and told me just to come sleep in her room. I continued to see this figure at least 3 times a week until I was 15. One day, I had had enough, and I went to talk to my grandma. I just told her what I had seen and described what it looked like. She said that she thought it was my grandfather, her husband. She told me that he had been an abusive drunk, getting his thrills from scaring his children, my dad and uncle, and being physically abusive to her. I asked her why she didn't leave him, and she said she tried twice. The first time, he found her at her sister's house, alone, and threatened to kill her if she tried it again. The second time he found her, she said he almost did kill her. She wouldn't go into how, though. After I talked to her, the activity stopped. Just like that, no more. I never saw the figure again. When I was 21, my mom died of brain cancer. The activity picked up again. One day, I was playing PlayStation in my room and I smelled her perfume, Lady in White. It was her favorite. Once again, items around the house would go missing and be found later in weird places, like the bathroom closet. I worked overnights, and one morning I came home to find my mother in the kitchen in the dress she had been buried in, just standing there. She was looking right at me. She smiled and was gone. I continued to live with my dad, and when I was 24, started dating the girl I am married to now. One evening, I got off work at 10 p.m., and we decided to go out. She came to my house to pick me up, and as I was getting my stuff together, we were standing in the living room. She said, "What the hell is that?" I looked up, and on the ceiling, there were brightly colored circles going in a circle right above our heads. Remember the door I heard pounding on? Well, while we were looking at the circles dancing around, that door fell, just fell right off the hinges that had held it in place for 16 years, and landed right in the middle of the hallway. We walked over to the door and just stood there staring at it, and then got the hell out of there. My dad had been on a business trip, and when he came home, I told him what happened. I could tell he didn't really believe me, but considering I wasn't the partying type, or someone who just took doors off the hinges, he didn't really know what else to think. He put the door back up on the same hinges, all the while muttering that he didn't see how it could have just fallen off. After that, my girlfriend's cousin had gotten married, and quite a bit of her family had come in for the wedding. 2 of her cousins that she hadn't seen in years ended up coming back to my house with the 2 of us. We had some drinks, listened to music, and just had our little own party. Her cousin Terry had to use the bathroom, and when he came back, he asked if we had recently had the bathroom redone. We had, but there was no way he could have known that. He started walking around the house and was saying things like, "That end table used to be in the corner, didn't it?" When he got to my parents' room, he said your mom or a motherly figure is in here. He then described her to a T. At this time, my dad and I had pretty much packed up pictures, and there were none of my mom out anywhere that he would have seen. He described my mother sleeping with a knife in her bed, which was believable since she and my dad had a pretty hostile relationship when he drank too much. He also described what our kitchen had looked like before we had it redone. Still no clue how he knew all this. One night, my girlfriend stayed the night at my house when my dad was on a business trip, and since it was bigger, we slept in my parents' bed. At about 4 a.m., she woke me up and said, "I just saw your mom standing by the closet." I looked over, and there was what looked like a cloud of smoke still there. Another time, my girlfriend was sick and left work early. She came to my house, and I went to go get her medicine. When I got back, she was asleep on the couch, covered up with a quilt. I just assumed she had gotten it off my bed. When she finally woke up, I gave her the medicine and she thanked me for covering her up. I told her I didn't do it, and she said she certainly had not, so we just put it off to Mom again. I've lived in 4 different places since that time, and in each of those places something paranormal or weird has always happened. I don't know if it's attached to me, or if I happen to get all the weirdo houses. But since this is so long, I'll end it here. Stay tuned for more stories, though. What's up, guys? Ghastly Ghoul here, and thank you so much for listening. So guys, I just completed my very first collaboration video with Joey's Nightmares. I'm so excited about this. I got to narrate a couple stories in this video, and I just can't thank him enough for the opportunity, and also for guiding this newbie through the collab process. With this whole YouTube making videos hobby, I guess you call it, I definitely learn something new every day. I'll have a link to the collab video below. Also, Joey's Nightmares is an awesome narrator. He has great content. He does a lot of collabs, so you get the opportunity to hear a whole bunch of different narrators. So please go check out his channel. It's pretty awesome. Also, my channel, I see we're kind of at 77 subscribers right now, which is awesome. I'm hoping to hit 100. I have a special 100 subscriber video in the works, and I think it's something you'll enjoy. So we'll see when that happens, or if. Anyway, back to our regularly scheduled ending. I really hope you enjoyed the video. If you liked the video, it'd be great if you would click the thumbs up button, comment, and share it with your friends. Please consider joining the Ghastly Gang by hitting that subscribe button. If you would like for me to narrate your scary story, please send it to my email address below, or post it on the Free Horror Stories subreddit. Also, please follow me on Twitter and like me on Facebook. That way you can keep up to date with what's happening on the channel. The links are below. And now, we must part ways, my friends. I fear you are living on borrowed time, for you'll never truly escape from the vault.